So they burned down 2 churches in Chile, and people are wondering what type of a person would burn down a church. Well, in Latin America, there is a very pervasive mentality that essentially says something like this. Since Europeans brought over Christianity, the churches are thus monuments of European colonialism. And so if we are going to transform the system, or if we are going to get rid of racism, we have to destroy everything. We have to destroy everything, and that includes the churches. So the churches have to go. Now, they will say things like, well, the churches honor la policía. The churches honor the police. So we have to destroy the church. And because the police have done brutality on indigenous people, we have to destroy all things connected to the police. We have to destroy all things connected to authority. And since the church is a monument of authority, and since the church was brought over by European colonialists, we have to destroy it. We have to destroy the church. And so this is the Jacobin mentality. Something was brought over by Europeans, oh, destroy it. So if anything that could be connected historically to European colonialism, they have to destroy it. It's like, it's the most retarded mentality ever, and it's all over Latin America like a cancer. It is a cancer. It's so stupid. It's so incredibly stupid. It's like, well, the church was brought over by Europeans, and so therefore it's a monument of European colonialism, so therefore we have to destroy it. Like, that's literally what you're dealing with here. But yet all of these people have iPhones. All these people have laptops. All these people have computers. All these people watch television. All of these people use social media because they love to get attention. These people are absolute attention whores. They love to post stuff on Instagram. Look at us. We're like, going against the policía, like, because all cops are bastards, all cops are bastardos. All policía is bad. And look, we're waving flags. Look, we have bandanas around our faces. Look, I'm the next Che Guevara. Like that, they love that kind of attention. Who created Instagram? Who created computers? Who created all these things? It all comes from the West. They weren't invented by indigenous people. They're out. So, because here's the thing, because the church is not indigenous, right? No, that's not the indigenous religion. But yet the West brought over what? Technology. The West brought over modern society. European colonialism brought over European civilization into the New World. And they hate the church because the church was a part of that. But yet they don't mind using all the technology that wasn't created by indigenous people. It was created by a bunch of white folks. But the mentality is so retarded. They just hate the church. That's what this is. They hate Christianity. And look at them. They're waving the rainbow flags. They're waving the flag of the Republic of Sodom. It's very obvious what these people represent. They represent a hatred for the church, a hatred for Christianity. But this is the Jacobin mentality. It's the mentality that says anything to do with the church has to be destroyed. That's the Jacobin mentality. And because, we heard some guy with glasses tell us that the church was responsible for the destruction of indigenous culture, we have to destroy the church. Even though indigenous people didn't have cell phones at one point, right? I mean, cell phones aren't a part of indigenous culture, but they all use cell phones, right? Laptops that wasn't created by indigenous people. It's like the people in the Islamic State who were saying things like, well, you shouldn't have a computer because the Prophet Muhammad didn't have one or something. Or, hey, you shouldn't eat falafels because the Prophet Muhammad didn't eat falafels. So, hey, shut down all the falafel stands. Like, this is the type of mentality that we're dealing with here. And it's so incredibly pervasive. It's dangerously stupid. Just dangerously stupid. But these people have such a hatred for European colonialism. Even though it was European colonialism that got rid of human sacrifice because the indigenous people were eating each other. it was because of European colonialism that you guys stopped cannibalizing each other, that you guys stopped doing human sacrifices on each other. It's like hundreds of years later, we're still talking about this. That's another thing that just tells me how dumb these people are. It's like, well, they destroyed indigenous culture. It's like, lots of cultures get destroyed. Who cares? Obviously, your culture wasn't that great, because if it was, it would have survived. It's so incredibly retarded. Lots of cultures get wiped out. I mean, how much of Irish culture do we have left in America? Pretty much none. No one's walking around with, dancing to jigs unless you go to like some river dance event. How much of Scottish culture was destroyed? Pretty much all of it, unless you go to some like kilt-wearing festival in San Francisco somewhere. There's no Scottish culture in America anymore. Cultures get wiped out all the time. Who cares? Some cultures need to get wiped out. Some cultures need to be purged out of society. Yes, absolutely. At one point in time, the Germans had a pretty Nazistic culture. And I'm not talking about just what started with Hitler. It was there before. It was there with Bismarck. It was there with the German Empire that commenced in the late 19th century. Like, there were some pretty evil Nazistic things about the German culture that was there for a very long time, going all the way back to when Luther's religion entrenched itself into German culture. That needs to be gotten rid of. A lot of that stuff needs to be gotten rid of. The anti Slavic sentiments that were very, very popular in Germany at one point in time, that stuff needs to be gotten rid of. A lot of that stuff still is lingering about in the atmosphere. There's a lot of things that need to be gotten rid of. Who cares? Will Christianity replace the indigenous religion? So what? So what? Apparently your religion was crappy enough that most people didn't want anything to do with it. Because if your religion was that great, people would have fought and died for it, but they didn't. That's the funniest thing. That's the funniest thing. The Aztecs fought against the Spanish Empire, and the nephew of Moctezuma, he believed that he was fighting for the religion of his ancestors. Well, he lost. And he didn't just lose to the Spaniards. The Aztec Empire didn't just lose to the Spaniards. The Aztec Empire lost to the Spaniards and the hundreds of thousands of Indian warriors who were coming from other tribes, because those tribes were being subjected to horrendous despotism from the Aztec Empire. And their warriors allied themselves with the Spaniards, and together they defeated the Aztecs. So the indigenous people in Mexico knew that the whole thing was BS, and they were so sick and tired of living under indigenous culture that they allied with the white people of Spain, the Mediterranean European people of Spain, and they defeated the Aztec Empire, and a lot of them converted to Catholicism. A lot of people converted willfully to Catholicism, and the same thing can be said for the rest of Latin America. And it's like, I remember going to, I'm going to go in a rant here. I remember going to junior high school, and even before that, hearing about the indigenous people. And the poor indigenous people, the indígenas, the poor indigenous people. And then you read about the indigenous people. You read about how they cannibalized each other, how they chopped people up to pieces, how they did ritual human sacrifice, how they did the most horrendous rituals you can ever imagine, skinning people alive. The Aztec Empire, when the Aztec Empire controlled all the territory in Mexico, most of the territory in Mexico, every month you had to pay taxes to the Aztec Empire. Do you know what you had to pay the Aztec Empire? Not coins. You had to pay them humans. The currency was human blood, because people had to be ritually sacrificed for the sun to be up. How else are you going to get your corn? You got to kill, 5 people every month on a pyramid, or more than that, actually. And you also had to sell people to slavery, because there was a huge slave trade that the Aztecs were running. How else was Moctezuma going to get sex slaves? How else were all these Aztec elites going to get sex slaves? They needed the sex slaves. So they got them from the other tribes. Who ended all that crap? It was the Spanish Empire. And the same thing can be said for a lot of the actions of European empires. The Hindus, oh, British colonialism, oh, blah, 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 blah. British colonialism was so bad that Mahatma Gandhi helped us against the British. Yeah, the Hindus, when a woman died, you know what they did? They burned. No, when a man died, do you know what they did to his wife? Yeah, they burned her alive. Yeah. And if she didn't want to get burned alive, they would shave her head and force her to sleep on the floor for the rest of her life. Oh, and she couldn't get remarried either. But the British were so bad. The British, but under the Hindu, the beautiful Hindu culture, you had the untouchables. People were forced into a caste system. Oh, and the British got rid of a lot of that stuff. And the reason why so many Indians converted to Christianity was because they were so sick and tired of all the Hindu BS. But the British were so bad. The British. So all these people who hate the church in Chile, they are of this mentality, the Jacobin mentality, the one that says you have to destroy everything. The system has to be destroyed. And this mentality is very pervasive in Latin America. I remember going to high school in Mexico. I lived in Mexico for over a year. I went to a private school because that's how most people in Mexico get their education, through private schooling. Public school isn't really all that popular because it sucks. So I remember going to this high school, and I remember hearing people saying that, hey, the Nazis really weren't that bad. And these were liberal Mexican teenagers. The guy who executed Jews with his pistol, yeah, he wasn't really that bad because he was just following orders. Oh, and the guy who pulled the lever to release the gas, the Zyklon B gas to kill the people in the gas chamber, well, he wasn't that bad because, he was just following orders. I honestly heard a girl say that the company that sold the chemicals, the poisonous chemicals, the company that provided the poisonous chemical to gas Jews, the company wasn't evil because the company didn't make a profit. So as long as you're not making a profit, because profit equals capitalismo, capitalism is bad, but if you want to give chemicals to kill people, as long as you're not making money, that's okay. That's okay, guys. This is the mentality that a lot of people have. And it's not just Mexico. You can see this in Colombia. You can see this in Chile. You can see this in Argentina. And I wondered to myself, how come these people love Nazis? How come these people were so sympathetic to the Nazis? Oh, and then it clicked one day. These people hated America so bad because of American imperialism. They hated America so much that they were willing to side with Hitler. That's how much these people hated America. But again, it's the Jacobin mentality. The Jacobin mentality doesn't give or take. It doesn't look at things with a balanced perspective. It doesn't acknowledge certain things. It refuses to agree it refuses to agree with the obvious, right? It refuses to acknowledge with what is right in front of them. It denies reality. It has absolutely no reason whatsoever. It just wants to destroy. It just wants to watch the world burn. So that's what you're seeing in Chile. And sadly, this mentality is spreading like a cancer into the United States. We saw this with all these riots and all these dumbasses rioting. Oh, Gerard Brooks, yeah. Regardless of the fact that, he fought two police officers and had practically a boxing match with two cops, took the taser of one of them and tried to fire the taser. Regardless of all that, what the cops did was straight up racist murder. Does that sound reasonable to you? Oh yeah, Breonna Taylor, regardless of the fact that she was practically the freaking treasurer for a major drug dealer, and she was keeping the money for a drug dealer, regardless of the fact that when the cops came into her apartment, her boyfriend shot at them, and so the cops had no choice but to return fire. Regardless of the fact that there was a warrant out for her, and the idea that they never knocked nor identified themselves as police officers is false regardless of all of that, you know, Breonna Taylor was murdered by racist white cops. And you know, the cops were so racist that, you know, the cops hated black people so much that they didn't kill her boyfriend. Because, you know, if the cops were so racist, you would think they would kill the boyfriend too, because the boyfriend also is black. None of that really matters, right? None of that stuff matters. What matters is this narrative in my head that says that cops are racist and they hate black people and blacks are being hunted down by cops every single day. So therefore, we have to destroy the entire police force, get rid of the entire thing. Don't just defund the cops, abolish the police, kill cops, right? Cops need to be all killed, because even if you're a good police officer, and this is another thing, when you say, hey, cops do a lot of good for society, yes, you do have bad cops, but cops do a lot of good things for society. Oh, no, 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 no. Even the good cops are bad. Even the good cops are evil, because if you were a righteous person, you would leave the police force. You would leave the police force. Does this sound like a person, as someone who talks like this, does this sound like a person who has reason? No. Anyone who thinks that way is utterly vacuous of any reason. Bottom line, it's very destructive. So this mentality is spreading all over the world like a cancer, and it's very dangerous. But this mentality, nonetheless, has been in Latin America for a very long time, hence why Che Guevara, hence why you had the, you know, so many weird-ass revolutions in Latin America, going all the way back to the Mexican Revolution, which was complete crap. The revolution against Spain was garbage. That was completely Masonic. And then you had the Mexican Revolution, which was also crap, because that was just Masons doing a revolution, another revolution, and they tried to destroy the church under the Caius regime. So this is what you're seeing in Chile is nothing new. That's why when I saw the video, I'm like, I'm not really surprised at all. Anyway, you guys just heard some theology. God bless.